This is the first time I'm seeing this room completely full in my 3 years here. Okay, so hello world and welcome to CSA Summer School 2017 and welcome to my talk on the joy of cryptography. I'm sure that all that you're going to hear in the next 1 hour is completely new to you. Okay, so let's get started with the motivational question that why should anyone be interested in learning cryptography? So the reason is the era that we live in, that is the digital era. In this era, you can love cryptography or you can hate cryptography, but definitely you cannot ignore it. Okay, so if you have ever authenticated yourself using a password, or you have bought something online, or you have downloaded some verified update of some software in your laptop, then definitely you have already used cryptography. Okay? Now, if you look at this world through crypto lens, you're going to see two kind of people, okay? Good and bad. The goal of ethical cryptography and ethical cryptographer is to protect the good from the bad. The good is denoted as honest, and the bads are denoted as adversary in cryptographic language. So, if you want to be a cryptographer, the prerequisite is that you must be able to distinguish good from bad. Okay, that's the primary prerequisite. You have to be able to distinguish between good and bad. You must have very high ethical value. Okay. Now, what is cryptography? So the cryptography is the study of mathematical techniques for securing digital information, systems, and distributed computations against adversarial attack. It provides us tools to control access to information and tools to enforce policies about who can learn or influence information. Okay. This is a very interdisciplinary area, and the world of cryptography takes strength from several fundamental subjects in computer science, including discrete structures, algorithms, and of course, complexity theory. Now let's take a quick look at the past and present of cryptography. So the first documented use of cryptography in writing goes back to approximately 1900 BC, when one Egyptian scribe used some non-standard hieroglyphs in an inscription. Then approximately about 110 BC, the famous Roman emperor Julius Caesar, he used what we call now as Julius Caesar cipher. Then during World War II, there was extensive use of cryptography. I'm sure all of you know about German Enigma and its subsequent breaking by the father of computer science, Alan Turing. In fact, because of cryptography, because of this breaking, the duration of Second World War was considerably reduced. Okay, but unfortunately, the treatment of cryptography until 1980s, it was done mostly. I mean, it was mainly about code breaking and code making and code breaking. Okay? So the codes are nothing but encryption schemes that in modern parlance. So you have heard about AES, DES. So they are all encryption schemes. So they used to be called as codes. So up to 1980s, cryptography was all about code making and code breaking. And the foundation was very shaky, and the treatment was done mostly in an unstructured and ad hoc way, and mostly from the artistic point of view. There was very little science behind it. But subsequently, the complete scenario got changed after 1980s. So the cryptography 1980s, it's called classical crypto, whereas the cryptography that we do now is called modern crypto. So the modern crypto is different from classical crypto in terms of the following parameters. The first one, that, as I said, that the treatment is quite different. It is more scientific in contrast to the artistic take in the classical cryptography. Then, of course, the scope has increased from let's say, so there was a single problem that was handled in classical crypto, which is nothing but encryption schemes which are used for secure message communication. That was the only problem that was dealt in classical crypto. In contrast, in modern cryptography, there are many problems that I'm going to discuss a few of them soon. So this is the first parameter with that distinguishes classical and modern cryptography, that is the scope. And then we have the scientific basis that I just told you. And the last one, of course, is the consumer or the end user of the cryptography. So back then, cryptography was mainly used by people from the higher strata of society. King, queens, and then military organization, and so on and so forth. In contrast, the modern cryptography is used by the common man. You, me, everyone actually uses modern cryptography. So I'm going to focus on the scope, which will give you that, give you the idea how cryptography has expanded from a single problem back then up to 1980s to a huge number of problems. Okay, so yeah, so this is the only problem that was dealt in classical crypto. It is called message communication. It's a two-party affair. There is a sender and there is a receiver. The sender has a secret message that it wants to communicate to the receiver in such a way that no third party who is eavesdropping over the communication channel between the sender and the receiver has no clue, absolutely no clue about the information. So that was the goal of message communication. Now in modern cryptography, we have problems like authenticated message communication. So this is it has more enhanced security property than message communication. Namely, if someone touches your message while it is going from one person to the other, then the receiver has the capability of detecting that something has gone wrong while the message was in transport. Okay, so that can be captured here, while that was not here in plain message communication. Then we have primitives or problems like e-cash. This is the digital version of the physical cash that you have. So it ensures that you can't spend the same money twice. You cannot buy two different things using the same money. Then we have problems like electronic election, electronic auction, electronic election. Think of all of us here in the room, and all of us have got access to internet. And let's say at the end of the summer school, you want to grade whether it is a good one or not, or bad one, right? You want to vote whether it's a success or a failure. Let's say for success it is 1, and for failure it is 0. And we want to count how many of you have said that it is a grand success. Okay, and the challenge here is that, of course, you guys, you have your vote in mind, 0 or 1, right? You don't want to disclose the vote to let's say neither your fellow student nor the organizers, right? So electronic election will help you to vote in such a way that at the end the outcome will be known, that is how many of you have voted as the event being success, right? But without leaking your private vote to each other. We have things like activism with safety. This is a very interesting problem. So So fortunately, in a country like India, we have freedom of expression. We can say anything that we like, right? You can put some random things in Facebook, but still no one actually cares about you. You say random things about politicians, and we are kind of free. We can say many different things, but we are still fine. But there are many countries where there are not much freedom of expression, and then in those countries, if they want to do right, they want to speak something truth, let's say about their countries to the outside world. They want to communicate. Okay, so the government is of course oppressive, right? They won't allow them to communicate what's happening in that country to the outside world. Now, one option is that they can encrypt whatever message they want to communicate to the world, and then they can send it across that encrypted message. Now, since the government itself is oppressive and it controls all the network that flows from the country to the outside world, right? So it can get hold of that encrypted data. Now, of course, it will know from which machine it has been generated. So it can go back to that person who has sent that data, that encrypted message. Now the government can come and bid that guy and tell us what have you written in this encrypted message, right? So they can torture that guy as much as they want until he reveals the truth. So there is the traditional cryptography, that is the encryption schemes are useless in this case, because now that guy has to actually reveal the same message that he has encrypted. But there are very nice and exciting schemes, encryption schemes, which we call as deniable encryption or non-committing encryption. This kind of encryption would allow you to encrypt your data in such a way that later you can deny, or you can you can equivocate about the message that you have communicated. So you can say that, no, this is not what I have sent. I have sent this. This is something that is kind of benign, and it's not against the government. So this is called deniable encryption or non-committing encryption. So this kind of encryption will allow you to do this. So we are using it for good purpose, but basically it allows you to lie, the sender to lie. Okay. Then we have things like secure storage, secure sharing. So in a secure sharing problem, there is a dealer with a secret, and there are some parties. The dealer would like to share the secret among those parties in such a way that only some legitimate subset of parties, if they come together with their shares, only they will be able to get back the secret. Right? So this has a tremendous application, for instance, in secure storage. And then we have problems like secure information retrieval. Let me not go into the details of that. Then there is problems like secure outsourcing of cloud. And lastly, there is this problem called secure computation. This is the problem that is, to me, this is the most interesting one because of the following reason, that it models all the problems that I have said so far in a nice way. So it is basically, it is a very strong abstraction that captures all the problems that I have mentioned. In fact, almost any problem in cryptography can be abstracted as secure computation, and that is why this is called as the holy grail problem. And so now, from now onwards, I'm going to actually talk about that, which is also my main area of research. So before going to that, I just wanted to say you, if you are interested in cryptography, if you want to learn about those fascinating anecdotes about cryptography from prehistoric time to 1980s, right? This is the book that you should follow. These have very, very comprehensive details about all that. So it's called the Code Breakers by David Kahn. It's a very, very nice book. Okay. Okay, so let's now move on to secure computation. I'm going to motivate that problem for you first before giving you the definition. So we are in the age of information. Information is everywhere. For instance, if you look at any individual, there's enormous amount of information that is linked to that individual. Think of the following information that are associated, that can be associated with an individual: age, salary, bank details, which has which incorporates many details. For instance, balance, net banking login and then password. You may have several bank accounts. And then you have, of course, citizenship, parents and family member details, identity details. In India, we have many identities, for instance, PAN card, passport, voter ID, Aadhaar card, so on and so forth. And there are many other things, as you can read from this. You have your biometric data, for instance, face, fingerprint, then iris, and your genome signature, lot of things, lot of such things. Think of profitable organizations like Microsoft, IBM, or TCS. They also have huge amount of information associated with them. The list of employees, their details, profit, loss, turnover, so on and so forth. Think of educational organizations like ISC, IITs. Again, there you will find huge amount of information, the faculties, their details, and students, their details. And think of every year there's so many students get enrolled. Then we have such embarrassing details as well, number of drug addicts, and so on and so on. Okay. Again, for hospitals and then security agencies like RAW, IB, CBI, and so on and so forth, military organizations, and finally you can think of a country. Okay, so there's a huge amount of information, and in these informations there are many pieces of information which the associated identities are not okay sharing in public. So for the same set of information, I just marked them in red, the information that the entity may not be published in public. Okay, so for an individual, let's say the salary, he may not be okay to share with all. Then of course the net banking password, and then the biometric details, those things we are very privy of. We don't want to share these things with anyone. Okay, so these are kind of secret information. So all the red color things that you see here, these are something that we don't want to publicly, we don't want to make it public. Now, what happens with this secret information? Not always they're kept just in peace. They're not just kept somewhere and stored and that's it, we forget about it. That's not true. So many times it happens that we need to do something with those secret data. One option is that we need to probably communicate to some other party that we want to share with. Okay, that's one option, and that gave rise to the problem called secure communication. So we have secret data and we want to transfer it, so we need to do it in a secure way. So that is why we have the problem called secure communication. So this problem is of course not trivial, but by now we know how to deal with this problem. So there are many off-the-shelf encryption schemes which we can use, and they give us, they tell us how to achieve this problem called secure communication. So the problem is simple to state. We know what it means, and then it is kind of well understood so far. Okay, but on the contrary, we also need to compute on the data, the secret data. So there are many scenarios where that demands data privacy as well as data computing on the data. Okay, so we want to keep the data private, but at the same time you want to do some meaningful computation. Okay, so that motivation leads to the problem called secure computation, or it is also called secure multi-party computation. So let me just give you one example, one application where you will see the dual need of data privacy and data computing on the data. Okay, so here's the example. So this is how the Earth looks like from the space. So there are millions of objects that are revolving around the Earth. In fact, NASA tracks about 700 spacecraft and about 21,000 objects in the space. And that will lead to approximately 20 crore pairs. Okay? And there are so many pairs, and it's very likely that they can collide in the space. And this is not a myth, and this is also not taken from any movie, sci-fi movie. This has really happened, and these are some lists, and the most interesting one is this one, 2009 collision between the Russian satellite and US spacecraft, which happened back in 2009, and the collision resulted, I mean, it caused both the satellites to be completely destroyed. Now, of course, you know how expensive it is to build those satellites. It's very, very phenomenally expensive. So, of course, the countries, they don't want the satellites to simply collide, right? But what happens is the information, the high accuracy positional information of the satellites are very, very private information. I mean, of course, you can check if two satellites which are revolving around the Earth, they're going to collide or not. That you can compute. There are some probability calculation that you can do, but that needs this high accuracy positional information. Okay, but the same time, these informations are very, very sensitive, right? So there is this concept of killer satellites, and there are some countries which on record has sent killer satellites just to kill someone else's satellite. So of course you cannot make this information publicly available. Okay, so these are sometimes national secret. Think of India and China. So they have their own satellites in the space, and you know very well that they are arch rivals. So of course they're not going to share the sensitive information with each other. But at the same time, both of them have the common goal that they don't want their satellites to simply collide and get destroyed. Okay. So do you see the need of data privacy and computation on the data at the same time? See, two countries, they want to keep the high accuracy positional information of the satellite private, but at the same time, they want to compute on the data. And they want to know whether the satellites are going to collide in the space or not. So that's the computation that they want to do, but at the same time, they want to keep their data private. So that was one example. And this is another one which is a special case of privacy preserving data mining. Think of the elite institutes, right? They have their own data. Let's say they have so every year they count the number of sexual abuse cases or drug addict cases. That's not something that they want to publicly tell, right? But let's say from the government, the MHRD, they want to know what is the total number of such cases happened in all IITs and IICs, right? In that case, the institutes so they have again the same requirement. They want to keep these numbers private, but at the same time, they are of course interested in participating in a national-wide counting system where they will feed their data and they want to know the final count, that how many such cases has happened across all the institutes. So again, you see the need of data privacy and computing on the data at the same time. So there are many such situations. In fact, if you think of the problems that I have mentioned some time back, the list of problems, electronic auction, electronic election, all of them has the same requirement. And therefore, we can abstract away those problems and we can formulate what we call as secure multi-party computation. Okay, so here goes the problem definition. Now you will find similarity with the situations or applications that I have just discussed. So here is the setup. We have n parties who do not trust each other, right? And let's denote them by P1 to Pn. Now, so the distrust is modeled by having a bad guy who we call as adversary in cryptography. So the bad guy, the adversary, corrupts some of the parties. Those parties who are not corrupt, they are called honest parties. And the honest parties, of course, have no information about who are corrupt. Because if they know who are corrupt, they can simply throw them away from the system and we will be left with just honest parties, and then there is no problem, right? So the challenge is that the honest parties have no information about who are corrupt. So that's the setting. Now every party, Pi, has its own private input Xi. And now there is a common n input function F that all the parties would like to compute on their private data. So the goal of MPC is the following. The first is correctness. All the parties together would like to compute this function F on their private inputs. So xi belongs to party pi. Okay, so they would like to know the function output. That's the first goal. The second one is non-trivial, which we call as privacy. It says that nothing about the inputs of the parties should be leaked during the computation. So while you compute this function on the private input of the parties, no information about the individual inputs of the parties must be leaked. Right? Now, can you think of the applications that I have mentioned in the last few slides? So think of that preventing satellite collision. So it can be thought of as a two-party problem, right? There, the private information of the parties are nothing but the high accuracy positional information of the satellites, and f is actually the probability or collision computing function that you want to compute. So that tells you whether your satellites are going to collide in future or not. Okay, so there is a small details here. So we said that nothing about the inputs of the parties should be leaked. That's actually not true. So if something is leaked from the function output itself about some of the inputs of the parties, that we cannot prevent. Because finally your goal is to know the output. From the output, if you know something about some other party's input, that of course we cannot prevent. Right. So take an example. Let's say this is a two-party problem. Each party has their own bit. They want to compute the end of those two bits. Right. So if, let's say, you have 1 and I have 0. So what would be the output of the end? It will be 0. And since you have 1, you will for sure know that I have input 0, because otherwise the output wouldn't have been 1. So from the output itself, one party, if he is able to guess or completely glean the information about the other input, that we cannot prevent. So we just modify the privacy property, and this is what we say. We say that nothing more than the function output will be leaked. Nothing more than the function output, and all that can be derived from the function output. Only that much is permitted. Function output and all that you can derive from the function output, only that much information is allowed. You cannot learn anything more than that. Okay. So that's the problem of secure multi-party computation, or in short, MPC. And as I mentioned, that almost any problem in cryptography can be modeled as MPC, and this is why it is called the Holy Grail problem. Okay, now we have to find so we have got a problem. We have to find a solution for it. Do you see that MPC is very, very easy to solve if you have someone to trust? Okay, so what would you do? Let's say this is the guy that we can trust. We have these 4 parties. The first party has its own private input. Every party has its own private input, and they want to compute this function f on their private inputs. They want to get y at the end. If they all can trust this guy, then how can you solve MPC? That's it. So since all the guys can trust him, and also there is an assumption that these parties are connected to this trusted third party. So he's called the trusted third party, TTP, okay, via private channels. Then the MPC is very easy to solve. All the parties can simply pass on their inputs to the TTP, and the TTP knows the function f. He can simply compute it, and then he finds out y, and then he simply hands over the output back to all the parties. That is it. That is how you solve MPC. But there is some problem in the solution. The first problem is that, so we have been saying that the in parties, they don't have trust among themselves, right? Now, if you get someone who is trusted, then so there are several problems. The first one is that it creates a single point failure. What does that mean? That means that if somehow the adversary gets control over this guy, this TTP, then everything is leaked. All the inputs, everything is completely leaked. And in cryptography, our aim is to actually remove this single point failure. This is very, very dangerous. And then second thing is that the first, so we started with this, that there is no trust in the world, right? The in parties that we have in the system who want to do the joint computation, they don't trust each other. So how suddenly you get someone who is kind of trusted? Trust is very, very rare and volatile in this world. And it's true that if there is trust in this world, then there is no scope of MPC. It's very easy to solve. But fortunately, there is distrust in this world, because we have this is some catchy lines that without darkness one cannot know what is light, without hatred one cannot feel love, without war one cannot realize the price of peace, without noise one cannot appreciate serenity, without distrust, for the same reason, without distrust one cannot value what trust is. And these contrasts are actually the hallmarks of the great magicians, and they are all going to be there in this world, both of them, right? Otherwise you will not understand the importance of the positive thing. So therefore in this world there will be distrust, and therefore we need to solve MPC without taking help from any trusted third party. There is no one who we can trust fully, so we need to solve our problem in our own way. So we still have the challenge we have to solve MPC without relying on TTP. Okay, but in the beginning it looks like it is impossible, right? Because I mean, it's very easy to, if you have all the inputs together in one machine, you can quickly solve the problem. You can just apply the function and that is it. You get the output. But look at the scenario. The inputs are all distributed with different parties. How would you compute the function f on those inputs which are kind of distributed among the parties? And you have to do it in a way that your data is still fine, right? It's secure. How do you do it? Looks like we are stuck, but fortunately we are not. So if we have the right set of tools, we can in fact solve this problem which seems like impossible. So I'll get to that. Before that, I want to say you something which is kind of phenomenal. So this is how we attack the problem of MPC. Remember that in MPC we consider general problems, any general functions, any f, right? That is polynomially computable, of course. So any function f that is polynomially computable, for that we can achieve MPC. So what we do is, with the function, the efficiently computable function, we first take a circuit representation of the function. Okay, this is something that is given by complexity theory. It says that for any polynomially computable function, there is a corresponding circuit representation. It can be arithmetic circuit or it can be Boolean circuit, right? But there is a corresponding, both way. You will get arithmetic circuit representation, you'll also get a Boolean circuit representation. We are fine with any one of them, right? And if it is a Boolean circuit, then you know the kind of gates that it'll have, for instance, AND or NOT, NAND, so on and so forth. And if it is an arithmetic circuit, then you have addition gates, multiplication gates, and so on and so forth. Okay. And you see the inputs are nothing but, the inputs to the circuits are nothing but the inputs to the function, and inputs to the functions are nothing but the secret inputs of all the parties. Okay, now MPC is done via what we call as secure circuit evaluation. So we have to evaluate the circuit in such a way that none of the inputs, none of the intermediate gate output values will be leaked. Only the final outcome of the circuit will be leaked. That's what we call as secure circuit evaluation. While you evaluate the circuit, none of the inputs, none of the intermediate gate output values will be leaked. Only the final outcome is going to be leaked. Okay, so therefore all the solutions that we have for MPC, it would the complexity of those solutions, mainly the communication, computation complexity, they will be dependent on the circuit size. By circuit size, I mean the number of gates that are there in the circuit. Okay, so now coming back to the building blocks. So these are the amazing set of building blocks that you have, and they basically hold the castle of MPC. So these are some of them. They are not exhaustively listed, so there are many more. The first one is circuit garbling. It's a very interesting area. This allows us to evaluate a circuit in its encoded form on encoded input, so that only the final outcome of the circuit will be revealed. So the circuit will be encoded, the inputs will be encoded, then we will evaluate the encoded circuit in the on the encoded input, and then we'll get the output alone, right? So everything will be done in the encoded domain so that you don't see anything. So that's called circuit garbling. And then we have a fascinating problem which is called oblivious transfer, or in short OT, of the secure communication problem that you already know. So again, there is a sender and the receiver. In secure message transmission, the sender has a single message that it wants to communicate to the receiver. In contrary, here the sender has two messages, okay, and the receiver has a choice bit. The bit indicates which out of these two messages he wants. So if the bit B is 0, that means that he wants M0, the first message. If the bit is 1, that indicates that the receiver wants the other message, that is M1. Okay? So oblivious transfer would allow the sender to communicate the message which is chosen by the receiver, namely MB. Okay? And the sender will have no clue about the choice bit of the receiver, and at the same time the receiver will have no clue about the message he has not chosen to learn. So this is a very interesting and intricate primitive. So the sender has two messages, the receiver can give a choice bit, and based on the bit he gets just one out of those two messages. The sender has no clue about the choice bit of the receiver has no clue about the message that he has not chosen to learn. Okay, so this is how we are going to represent an OT. So as you can see, this is kind of a box. In the left, it takes two inputs which are provided by the sender. In the left, it takes a bit which is the where the receiver can input the choice bit, and then it has just one output port on the right that will give the chosen message to the receiver. So that's how we are going to abstract out the oblivious transfer. Now this primitive is very, very important because it is known to be complete for MPC. Informally, what that means is that if you know how to build an OT, then you actually don't need to do anything. You can build MPC protocol just relying on OT. So if I give you many, many such ideal OT boxes, you can use them and you can build an MPC protocol. That's why this primitive is called as complete for MPC. Okay, so now another interesting primitive which we call as secret sharing. This I have briefly mentioned you. So there is a dealer with a secret, and there are n parties. The dealer would like to share the secret among these n parties in such a way that only legitimate set of these parties will be able to get back the original secret if they put together their shares. If an illegitimate subset of parties come together and then they gather their shares, they will have absolutely no clue about the secret, the original secret. This is also a very interesting primitive which plays a pivotal role in building MPC protocol. Then we have problems like broadcast or Byzantine agreement. Here you have a number of parties again, and some parties are bad. Okay, of course, the honest guys have no clue who are bad, and everybody has their own input to begin with, and at the end, so they may not be same, the inputs may not be same. The goal at the end is that they want to agree on a common message. So that's called Byzantine agreement. And lastly, we have the message transmission, which I have already introduced to you. So these are some of the very important building blocks. So they are actually important problem in their own right, but they also lend their power to build MPC protocol. Okay, so these may seem to you some simple problems, but each one of them are actually separate area of research, and they have drawn a considerable amount of effort from the research community, and there are many, many research papers on each of these topics. Okay, so In the study of MPC, what we do is we do feasibility and efficiency study, and then we try to find out lower bound and then matching upper bound in terms of complexity measures such as communication complexity. So these are all happening over the internet. So you are or internet or some a network, right? So we have to consider these complexity measures such as communication, which basically is nothing but the bandwidth that you require over the network channels. Then the round complexity, which is nothing but the amount of time you need to execute such protocols. Then the computational resource that you need to build the protocols. So we do a lower bound and upper bound study in terms of these complexity measures for MPC, as well as the primitives that I have told you, right? All these primitives over various network settings and adversarial settings. So the network can be of many types. It can be a complete network, all the parties may be connected to each other, or there may be some missing links. You can consider synchronous network, you can consider asynchronous network. So there are varieties of network settings that are available. All are practically motivated, and we study MPC in such in various settings. And also there are various kinds of adversary available based on their power. Okay, two of them are, I can just tell you these two. So there are many other dimensions of the adversary. So the one that I wanted to say is semi-honest and malicious. So if an adversary is semi-honest, that means that it can go and corrupt some of the parties out of the in parties, and those he corrupts, he will be able to see complete information. He can see the entire memory of those parties. So the parties are nothing but, you can think of laptops or mobiles or machines, right? So it can completely see what's there in the memory of that party. So this is what it means by semi-honest. So it can just observe or eavesdrop, but nothing more than that. Now there is a more stronger version of adversary which we call as malicious. Here it can, apart from just eavesdropping the information from the memory, it can actually force the parties to behave in any arbitrary way. So there will be some protocol, prescribed protocol. Now this adversary can force the parties to behave, to actually not follow the protocol, but behave in any arbitrary way it wants. So that's called malicious. It's the strongest form of adversary that we have. Okay, and the last thing that I wanted to mention is that MPC is no longer a concept. It has been introduced back in 1982, so it's been 35 years, and we have developed a huge amount of theory, sure, but by now it has also become a technology. So people have started building MPC solutions. They have implemented it. There are several companies across the world who build MPC solutions, and then of course there are many governments who have started using it. So if you like implementation, then there is scope of putting effort in this domain. Now the last part of the talk. So the problem has been introduced. Now what I'm going to do is, in next 20 minutes, that in the first part I'll tell you how to do MPC on some simple functions like plain addition, plain multiplication. So these simple functions are also of interest, which I'll tell you. And then in the second part, I'm going to discuss the first ever MPC solution proposed in the literature by Andrew Yao back in 1982, right? And for this work, Yao has received Turing Award in 2000. So this is actually called garble circuits. So the techniques that I have mentioned, garble circuits, that you will see how garble circuit works. So I will tell you garble circuits and Yao's two-party computation problem. So that's just for two parties, not in general for any n parties. How to build that solution based on garble circuits. Okay. So let's get started with this first. So we'll do MPC for some simple functions like addition and multiplication first. Okay, so this is the problem. You have n parties, P1 to Pn. Party Pi has input xi, right? And the function that we want to compute is nothing but plain addition of all the private inputs of the parties. The simple function itself is interesting because this is nothing but electronic voting that I have talked about. Okay, so let's see how we can do that. So you remember the challenge? The challenge is that we want to find out y, right? But without leaking these individual inputs, these xi's. That's the goal. Okay, so we're going to need this primitive secret sharing that I have already told you. And now I'm going to show you one particular instantiation, very simple instantiation of secret sharing. And the mathematical structure that we need is a field. Okay, so we are going to consider for simplicity this ZP. ZP is nothing but all the integers from 0 to p minus 1. This p is a prime, and then you can show that this is actually a field with respect to these two operations plus addition modulo p and multiplication modulo p. With respect to these two operations, this is actually a field that you can show. Okay, for now just believe me. Okay. Okay, so remember the problem, the secret sharing. So we have a dealer, right? We assume the secret is from this underlying field. Okay, now there are n parties. This the dealer has to create some n shares. This is what it is going to do. So it has a secret, and now it chooses n random shares from the field uniformly at random, but with the constraint that they all sum up to the secret is. So one way of doing it is you choose n minus 1 values uniformly at random from the field, right? And then just subtract that from S to get the remaining share. That's all you can do. So is it clear? So you are picking n random values from here, from the underlying field, with the constraint that they all sum up to the given secret is. Let's call the set of the shares S1 to Sn by this notation, that capital S. That's a set. Okay. Now this is the share distribution. The first party receives all shares but S1. Second party receives all shares but S2. Similarly, the ith party receives everything but Si. Okay. So that's it. That's the secret sharing is done. Okay. Now, do you see that if two parties come together with their shares, they will be able to recover the secret? Yes, this guy misses S1. He will get it from the other guy, and then S2 is not here. So, but that is there here with the first guy. So, if just two people come together with their shares, they will be completely able to recover the secret. But think of the share given to a single party. Given to a single party, he will have no information about the secret. So consider the first party, right? So he has all but the share S1. Now, so there is a secret space, right? Some distribution over this. So for any secret, there will always exist some element from the field which will actually fit the bill. So he will have absolutely no clue what that secret would be. Every secret is equiprobable for him. So even though he has unbounded computing power, he has quantum computer, he has no way of pinpointing what the secret could be from the field. Okay. So this satisfies the definition of secret sharing, and this is a very simple secret sharing that we have. Now using this, let us see how we can solve the problem of MPC for the addition problem. So for simplicity, I have considered three parties. Right, you can think of one of the parties could be bad. One of the parties is under the control of the adversary. And then his goal would be to actually know the inputs of the other parties. Now, I'll describe the protocol. You try to come up or think about if you can come up with some attack or not. Okay. Okay, so every party in my protocol is going to act as the dealer of an instance of secret sharing, the secret sharing that I just discussed. So P1 acts as the dealer, and for him the secret is his input, X1. So since there are three parties, he is going to find out three shares. Let's denote them by X11, X12, and X13, right? So that they sum up to X1. So if you sum these three up, then you get X1. Now he does the secret sharing as the way that I described. So P1 gets all but the first share. The second party gets all but the second share, and the third party gets all but the third share. That's it. Similarly, P2 is going to do the same thing, but now he is acting as the dealer, and his secret is his own input. So he does the secret sharing in this way, and this is the notation: x21, x22, and x23. They are the shares of x2. Similarly, P3 does another instance of secret sharing. Okay, all done. Now, so P1 has all these shares. P2 has all these shares. P2 has all these shares, right? Let them add up locally. So P1 adds up the first three things: x12, x22, and x32. And let's say S2 denotes that sum. Similarly, he adds this 3 and then he gets S3. And P3 also does the same thing. As you can see that since so P1 and P2, both of them, for instance, have x1 3, right? Similarly, both of them has x2 3. Both of them has x3 3 and x3 3. Okay, so this sum will be common to both. Now after this, let us assume that Pi is the guy. I mean, Pi could be one of them. He is the one who is interested in the output Y. So what I do is I ask all these parties simply to transfer what they have computed, not these breakups after summing. Okay, so these two things they should communicate to P1. Now P1 simply takes one of the, so he has duplicate for every summons he has a duplicate. So just going to throw that away, ignore that, and just take S1, S2, and S3. If he sums up, then what he get? What does he get? He gets Y. And in this solution, are we leaking anything beyond what we need? We are just leaking Y. From these things, he since he doesn't know about these breakups, I mean, think of the adversary being one of these parties, anyone, either P1 or P2 or P3. Can he glean any information about the other two parties' input? Right? No. So this is very simple solution, but you see that we can achieve what we want. We wanted to keep our data private, but yet we wanted to compute something. In this case, it's a plain addition, and you see that this simple solution gives you achieves the goal. Think through it offline, and if you come up with any problem, let me know. There is no problem actually, so I'll have to kind of defend it if you find any problem. Okay, and this solution simple yet interesting, because even though the adversary has unbounded computing power, he can actually not know anything about the other parties, even though he has unbounded computing power. This is the nice thing about this protocol. Right, but see that here I have assumed semi-honest adversary, not malicious adversary. In fact, whatever I'm going to talk today, they assume semi-honest, the simplest form of adversary. There itself you will find a lot of challenges. So this is for plain function, plain addition. That's why it is simple, but it's not simple in general for any generic function. Okay, now the next thing is we want to do multiplication. Now we have come back to two-party case. We have two parties. Each one have their own private bit. Okay, so this guy has x1, this guy has x2, both are bits. So we want to do we want to find out product of x1 and x2, x1 dot x2. That's the thing that I want to do. And I also give you the primitive that I want to use. So I want to use one OT primitive that I have already discussed. Remember the OT primitive? So I give you just one such box. Cannot replicate the box. I give you just one box. Now, can you tell me how P1 and P2 are going to feed their inputs to the OT box, so that at the end of it, at the end of just running an OT box, P2 will have the product with you. Find out how these two parties are going to feed inputs to the OT box. So if you have understood the OT, then it will take about a minute or even less than that to come up with a solution. So let's see if you have understood. If you want me, do you want me to repeat the definition of OT? You remember it? You remember it, right? Okay, so just tell me what it takes from P1 and P2. Anyone? Tell you the solution? Or you want me to wait? Anyone? Close? Yeah. No, here, what are you providing here in these two? So this guy doesn't have X2. Yeah. No, okay, 1 second. Yeah, what? No, you have to specify. Left side, what are you providing? X1 and not of X1. Okay. And over here? Yes, this takes a bit. 1 second. Yeah. No, you have to specify what exactly is it. Yeah, but how do you decide what to give? In the left side, what is it? X1 and 0, and over here? 1 second, just think a bit. You are in the right direction. Just think a bit. Slightly wrong. X1 and 0 or 0 or X1, because the order matters. So what do you give here? Yes. Right. You know that, don't know that semantics. The semantics is that if this is 0, right, then you this is what you output. Whatever is inputted here, that is the one. Exactly. So that's the solution. So he feeds 0 and X1 here, and P2 feeds X2. Right? Now my claim is that what is output over here is nothing but X1 dot X2. Why is that? Think of X2 as 0. If X2 is 0, then the product is 0. And by the OT functionality, you are actually outputting this. And this is set to 0. So if this is 0, then you get to output this, and that is exactly is equal to the product. On the contrary, if X1 is 1, right, then the product is nothing but X1. 1, then the product is X1. And OT functionality also does the same. So if this is X1, then this is what is output over here. X1 is output here. So no matter what is output here, the way we have fixed the inputs, it ensures that the output over here is nothing but X1 dot X2. So as you can see, with a simple OT box, we could actually do multiplication or product. And this is also very interesting functionality. There are many nice applications of it. I don't want to mention that now. So let me actually try to give you some idea about how we come up with a generic MPC protocol for any generic functionality. Okay, function. So before that, I just wanted to give you a quick glimpse about the fact that I have just stated that for every polynomial function, there is a corresponding Boolean or arithmetic circuit. Right? This comes from the complexity theory. I just want to give you one quick example. So let's say that we want to compute greater than equal to or less than equal to of some 2 L-digit numbers, non-negative numbers. Okay, so X is L bits and Y is also L bits. And let us assume that this is a small thing, that is a gadget which is given to us. It takes 3 bits, Xi, Yi and Ci. This is called 1-bit comparator. And this gives 1-bit output, which is Ci plus 1. And the functionality that it achieves is the following. So the Ci plus 1 is equal to 1 if and only if this bit is strictly greater than Yi, or these 2 bits are equal but Ci is equal to 1. So this is called 1-bit comparator. So this actually implies that if this bit is 1, then these 2 bits are definitely, this bit is greater than equal to Yi. That's exactly what it implies. And if you go back and if you try to implement this functionality using Boolean circuit, it will not take much effort. You will see that we can actually write this equation. We can write Ci plus 1 in terms of Xi, Ci and Yi. And these are the types of gate you need. You need 3 XOR gates and 2 AND gates to represent this logic. Now, if I give you this 1-bit comparator as a building block to find out a circuit for greater than equal to for this L bits numbers. This is the, so I don't want to think, let you think, but usually I would, but this is what we do. So we need L copies of this circuit, and so you can start with LSB bits, right? X1 and Y1, you put that circuit here. C1 is actually the first bit is set to 1 because we want to find out, the output of this circuit will be 1 if X is greater than equal to 1. That's why we set that as 1. Yeah, so you can go back and then you can quickly check that this circuit actually gives you, it implements this functionality greater than equal to. So all you need to check is the last bit, this CL plus 1. If CL plus 1 is 1, right, then definitely X is greater than equal to Y. Otherwise, if this bit is 0, then this is less than equal. So we want to compute. So in fact, the solution I told you about this Yau's double circuit, right? So Yau is the first person to come up with this secure multiparty computation problem, and he motivated secure multiparty computation problem with respect to this functionality. So the problem initially was called as Yau's million years problem. Okay, so there was 2 guys, and then they wanted to find out who is richer between them. They have their own assets. They didn't want to disclose assets to each other. Still, they wanted to find out who is richer between them. So that was called the Yau's million years problem. And there, basically, we securely computed this function, which is greater than equal to. Okay, and this is one such circuit representation. And I think in 5 minutes I will wrap. Is that okay? Yeah, is the next speaker is already here? Oh, okay, so they have to go for coffee break, right? Okay, so I'll take 5 minutes from your coffee break, and I just wanted to show you how we do circuit garbling. Okay, so the goal is, as I mentioned before, for a generic circuit. So we are done with the specific circuits, right? Plus addition and multiplication. We want to deal with generic circuit, and for that we want to do secure circuit evaluation, as I mentioned before. And in secure circuit evaluation, the parties will jointly compute the circuit securely, meaning that only the final outcome will be revealed. None of the intermediate values and inputs will be leaked in that process. And circuit garbling allows to do that. This is one of the ways of doing secure circuit evaluation. So what we do in secure garbling and what is the goal is they are stated as follows. So as I mentioned, we encode or garble the circuit. That's the first step. Then we encode the input, right? And then we evaluate the encoded circuit on encoded input to get encoded output. So everything is done in the encoded domain. Encoded circuit, encoded input. With that, you can evaluate and get encoded output. And then there is some decoding information that only if you have the decoding information, you can map back the encoded output to the plain output. So if I give you decoding information, only then you can get back the actual output. Now the goal is, as I said, nothing beyond the circuit output should be leaked. That means it will preserve input privacy, it will preserve the intermediate gate output values, and if I don't give you decoding information, it also hides the output. Okay. Now quickly I'm going to show you how we garble circuits. So I have taken a very simple circuit. This is one AND gate and this is one OR gate, and we just have three inputs and just one output. That's my circuit, and I am going to show you how we garble circuit. Right, so for, if you want to evaluate the circuit on clear, let's say on some particular input assignment, this is the particular assignment that I have considered, 0 for A, 1 for B, and 0 for C. How do you evaluate the circuit on clear? So you invoke the truth table, right? So this is an AND gate. So this is 0 and 1, so you go to the second row, and you see that that's 0. So you're going to associate 0 with the output of the output where of that gate. Now this gate has got its value. You have to evaluate this gate. You invoke the truth table for the OR functionality, and then you see both are 0. Okay, so this is 0 is what you should get, and that's how you get 0. So that's a evaluation of a circuit on clear. This, we didn't hide inputs, we didn't hide the intermediate gate values, nothing was hidden. Now we want to garble the circuit, we want to encode the input, and we want to evaluate the circuit on encoded input in such a way none of the inputs, none of the intermediate gate values will be known. So let's see how we do it. So we have the circuit. The first step of garbling or encoding a circuit is to, so we'll do part by part. We'll first garble the wires. Okay, so there are two components for the circuits, input, the wires and the gates. Okay, so we are going to garble the wires. So garbling wire is nothing but associating two identically looking keys. So first I am going to describe how we do it using physical entities like physical keys and physical boxes, and then we'll replace that with cryptographic primitive. So garbling a wire is nothing but associating with it two identical looking keys, one for 0 and one for 1. So these are all Boolean circuits. So everywhere will take value from 0, or it is either 0 or 1. So corresponding to that, we associate two identical looking keys. Now you can see that they are of course not looking identically. So this is just for our advantage so that we can understand this key is associated with 0 and that key is associated with 1. But if I would have picked the keys and let's say I give you one of the keys, you have no way of knowing what is the associated meaning. So you will not know whether it is associated with 0 or it is associated with 1. You have no clue. It's just half probability of guessing. That's all you can do. Okay. So we are going to call the key associated with 0 as left key and the other key as the right key. So for everywhere we have a left key and we have a right key, and only the one who has picked up those keys, he only will know the meaning. The other, no one else will have no clue about what is associated with what. Okay, so let's garble all the wires in the circuit. So we have 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. So let's associate left key and right key with every node. So that's the first hop. Now the most interesting part, we are going to garble a gate. For that, we need 4 boxes. Okay. Of what we are going to put inside the box. Now this 4, can you guess why we need 4 boxes? Basically, we want to encode the 4 rows of the truth table. That's why we have 4 boxes. The first box, okay, that is basically to encode the output corresponding to the first row. That is, if the input is 0 and 0, then you should get 0. So what we do here is we take the left key of the output wire of that gate and we put it in the first box. Similarly, since this is an AND gate, past 3 rows, all of them would lead to 0. So we take 1 copies of this key, and then in all the 3 boxes we put the left key for the output wire. The last one is different, right? This here you should encode 1, because for this combination, 1 input combination, you should get 1. So this should contain the key corresponding to 1. Okay, so we have put things in the box. Now the interesting thing is that how we are going to lock these boxes. Now these boxes are going to be doubly locked. Okay, we'll use two keys to lock each of these boxes. Now can you guess which? So now these are the keys. So we have total 4 keys, right? 2 from the left where and the 2 from the right where. There will be 4 combinations of 2 keys, key pairs. We'll use each of them to lock these 4 boxes. Can you guess which pair will be used to lock which box? Look at the truth table. That will give you the answer. It's kind of obvious. So we take the left key from here and left key again from here, and we use them to lock the first box. Why is that? Because the idea is that later, if the evaluator of the garble circuit, if he gets this key, the left key over here and the left key over here, he should be able to open just this box and get the 0th key. That's the idea. Okay. Now, so yeah, so that's the combination. So we use this and this key to lock this box. Then for the second one, we take the left key from A and the right key from B, and we lock the second box. Like that, the other remaining combinations. Okay, the last one is locked with the right key from both the pairs A and B. Right, and that's in a very similar way. You again create this 4 lock boxes for the second gate. Now, my garble circuit is nothing but this this ensembles of lock boxes. So if I say that what is my garble circuit for this circuit, these are nothing but this set of 4 lock boxes. That's all. Garble circuit or encoded circuit is nothing but this 4 lock boxes corresponding to every gate. Done. We are done with garbling. Okay. Now, if you want to evaluate that garble circuit, the first step is that we have to encode the input, right? Now, we take the same input assignment that we have taken before. So, for A, we had taken 0. So, the encoding of this will be nothing but the left key. Now, I have given you just the key. Now, by seeing the key, you will not know what bit it is associated with. Now, for this, let's say the input is 1. So, I give you the right key for B. And the input for C is 0, so I give you the left key for C. So these lock boxes are the garble circuit, and these keys. So for everywhere input where you have got just one key, which corresponds to the input. Now, so far you see that we have not disclosed anything. By seeing just these keys, you will have no information about what the input is because of the identical. Because I said they are identical looking. Okay. Now we have to evaluate the garble circuit using the encoded input. How do you do it? So you have 2 keys from here, and remember the way we constructed the lock boxes, only one box out of these 4 boxes is you will be able to open, right? And that depends on which pair you have got. So for this one, since this is corresponds to 0 and this corresponds to 1, you'll be able to open the second box. And if you open the second box, you get the key. And that you are going to associate with the output wire of that gate. So you have got this key, right? This is as if this is equal to evaluating the circuit on clear. If you would have got this inputs, then you would have invoked the truth table and you would have seen the second row, and you would have got the 0, you would have associated 0 with that. So it's parallel to that happening, but you see that we are not leaking anything on the inputs and the intermediate get output values. Now you have got this, and the similar way with this key pair, you will be able to open just one box, you will get another key, you will associate that with this. Now this is the encoded output. You have got the output, right? Now we need decoding information to give meaning to this. So this is something that we want to know, everyone. I mean, all the parties who are interested, who are doing this, all this garbling and all that, they are interested in knowing the output, and the output is actually hidden in the key. That is the meaning of the key. What is the meaning of the key? Is the key left key or the right key? So for the output, so how do you basically give the decode information? What could be a possible decoding information for this? You just need to reveal, let's say, both the keys. that were associated with this particular word, and you just tell that the first key is the left key and the second key is the right key. Now this guy who was evaluating in the encoded domain, he has got this right from this box. After opening this box, he can simply compare, okay, is this key same as this or this? If it is same as the left key, then it knows the meaning is 0, otherwise the meaning is 1, and therefore he can find out what the meaning is. Okay, so do you think everything is okay? No one actually stopped me. Do you think everything is okay? This is actually not okay. We had a goal and actually we're not achieving that. Do you see any problem? Where exactly? Yes. No, so the assignment, are you talking about how we are locking the boxes? No, that is already determined by the truth table, and we also have assigned the meanings, right? When we picked up the keys, we have assigned, okay, this is the left key and this is the right key. So, and then for a gate, you know what gate functionality we want to achieve. It's an AND gate, then you know the truth table. So, kind of everything is deterministic. Which key you want to put inside the box and which two keys you want to use for locking that box. Everything is determined by the meaning and as well as the truth table of the functionality. So, for instance, why not? I mean, this is just an example. We actually can do the same thing for any circuit which is like arbitrarily big. It consists of, I haven't shown you how to garble XOR on those things, but it will be easy to follow, right? Because I have done it for AND and OR gate. In a very similar way, you can encode the other gates. So the problem is with respect to security, we are actually leaking information by the way we are evaluating it. That's not a problem, because remember what I said in secure multiparty computation problem, that if something is leaked from your output, right, about the input, that we cannot prevent. Even though you would have, I mean, no matter how you are going to evaluate that particular function, if knowing the output leaks something about the input, that we cannot prevent. So that's not a problem. That functionality itself is such that the output leaks information about the input, that we cannot prevent. So that's not a problem. Yeah. What is the problem? No, okay, so I didn't, maybe I didn't make it clear. So one guy is creating the garble circuit. So he's picking key pairs for everywhere, and he knows what the circuit is. This is an AND gate, this is an OR gate. And then the way that I specified, he is going to create 4 locked boxes for every gate. Okay. Now this ensemble of the 4 locked boxes is the garble circuit. So you have a plain circuit. For that, the corresponding garble circuit is nothing but the set of 4 locked boxes. Right? So let's say I create that, and now I give it to you. Okay? So the garble circuit, I give it to you. So that's nothing but set of 4 locked boxes. Okay? Now, I want you to evaluate on some input. I don't want to give the input on clear to you, then you will know the input. I don't want you to know my input. So what I do is I encode that input. Encoding the input is nothing but giving the keys, the corresponding keys. If let's say for the first where A, my input was 0, then I'll give you just the left key. Now, by looking at that key, you have no clue whether it is a left key or right key. So that's why that kind of hides my input. Now, your goal is that you have got the encoded input, you have got the encoded or garble circuit. You will evaluate that circuit on the encoded input to get the encoded output. And finally, I give you the decoding information with which you just get to know the output. So all you get to know the output by doing that process is, I mean, you know just the output, nothing else. You don't know my input because I have given that in encoded domain. You also don't know the intermediate gate values. All that you know is the output. So I think you are kind of diverting to a different thing. So the problem is that Should I remove this because is it not creating some sound? It's okay. Yeah. Okay, so the problem is, let's say I have maybe I go here. So I give you this key and this key. It is true that by looking at the key you will not know the meaning, but if I give you these 4 boxes exactly in the order that I created, right? And if you are able to open the second box, can't you imply something? Can't you imply that definitely then this key is the left key and this key that I have got is the right key, meaning that this key, my input corresponding to this where is 0 and my input corresponding to this where is 1. Just by opening the second box, you would know what key pair they are, whether it is a left key and the right key, and based on that you can infer information about the inputs. So that's something that I didn't wanted to disclose. I wanted you to know just the output, the final output, nothing in between. But I garbled in such a way that leaked information to you. So what do I do? Do you see any way to fix this problem? That's it. You just shuffle it randomly. Okay. So once you create the boxes, the constructor of the garble circuit, he will simply shuffle the box in a random order. And now the boxes, they don't preserve any meaning, and therefore, if using, let's say, some left key and the right key, you open the second box, that doesn't necessarily mean that you are opening you are using the left key from A and the right key from B. So all you need to do is a shuffle. Okay, so that is actually the garble circuit at a high level, and using physical lock and keys, you can simply replace with using cryptographic primitive, which is nothing but symmetric key primitive, for instance AES, DES. So you can use those things to replace it. I'm not going to give you the details. So basically you have to pick 2 keys from the key space. So think of AES, you just pick 2 keys, okay? So they are randomly picked, so no way you can distinguish. By looking at 1 key, you cannot know whether it is associated with 0 or whether it is associated with 1. And the locked boxes are nothing but encryptions. Encryption of the key, so you are doubly going to encrypt. So there is a double encryption, doubly locked boxes. Parallel to that, you have double encryption. So you are going to encrypt using both the keys. That's all. So, and then you randomly shuffle. So this is the garble circuit, set of 4 ciphertext for everywhere, for every gate. And as again, the encoding is giving the corresponding key. Right, that's it. So now this is the 2-party protocol, and then I'm going to show you just for 1 gate, and you can interpolate that for any generic circuit. Okay, so there won't be any problem. So in YAOS 2-party computation problem, we have 2 parties with private inputs X and Y, and the specific function that we want to evaluate is the AND gate. For this case, you can do any generic circuit, that's not a problem. So the goal in this case is to know Z, which is nothing but X dot Y. So this is the function that we want to compute. Now the cross key is that one party acts as the garble circuit constructor, and the other party acts as the garble circuit evaluator. Okay, so this guy is let's say this guy is going to act as the garble circuit constructor. So the garble circuit is in this case, this is the circuit of interest. So he is going to construct. So we are going to assume the specific inputs 0 0. So of course we are going to get 0 here. And remember the security goal. Since his input is 0, from seeing the output he should not be able to know what the other party's input is, because his input is 0, right? So by seeing the output 0, he should not get any information about the input of the other party, and the same should hold good for P1 as well. So when I run the protocol, when I tell you the protocol, keep in mind the security goal and tell me if there is a violation. Okay, there is not, because this is proven to be secure, but still, so that kind of you get the idea. Okay, so this is the protocol. So he has got the circuit, which is in this case 1 gate, that's it. And P0, so this is how he garbles, right? He associates 2 keys for everywhere, 3 aware, so 3 pairs of keys, and then the way that I discussed, that way he creates 4 ciphertext. shuffling, everything is done. After that, these 4 ciphertexts are left with, and that is called the garble circuit for this plain circuit. Now he sends across the garble circuit, which is nothing but the set of 4 ciphertexts plus the decoding information. Decoding information is nothing but these output keys. So the left key is always corresponds to 0 and the other key is corresponds to 1. So that's one thing that he sends. The other thing he sends to this party is nothing but the encoding of his own input. His own input, and this is the where that takes X. So which key should he send out of these 2? Yeah, so that bit is 0. So that means he is supposed to send the left K1 of 0. Exactly. So that's the encoding for his input. Right. Now this guy has got the garble circuit, he has got the decoding information, and he has also got the encoding information corresponding to the input of P0. But to evaluate that garble circuit, he also needs the encoding of his input. So for that circuit, he also has got some contribution, right? His input. Why? So how does he get encoding information corresponding to Y? So Y in this case is 0. But how does he get the encoding information? Remember that these keys are with this guy. And the bit Y is private input of party PI. Now he wants to get the corresponding key. So out of this K2 and K20 is, since this bit is 0, he is supposed to get K2 0. So how does he get that? Of course, without leaking Y. If he simply gives Y to this party, he knows what 0 is and then he can send the corresponding thing. But remember, our goal is to hide the private inputs. Of course, we don't want to leak Y. Any clue? I have already given you enough tool which you can use here to solve this problem. Yes, how? Okay, yes, OT. So what do you give here? This party, what does he give here? And what does he give here? That's it. So they run a OT together. He inputs this key pair K20 over here and K21 over here, right? And he inputs his own input, what is which is Y in this case, and we have taken a specific example. So 0 here, and P1 will get K20. Now see that because of the security of the OT, oblivious transfer, P1 will have no information about the other key, and P0 will have no clue about the choice bit of P1. So with this, P1 now has a garble circuit. He has the complete encoding information for that circuit, right? K1 0 here and K2 0 here. And remember, because of the key since the keys are identical, this gives no information to P1 about, this gives no information to P1 about what this key corresponds to. That basically encodes the input of P0. Now with this, he can open one of these 4 boxes, and since they are randomly shuffled, comes from the security of the garble circuit, he just gets one key, and from the encoding information, he can compare and he can find out that 0 is the output. He learns the output, he sends the output back, both the guys gets the output, but no one knows what is the input of the other party. Okay, so this is it, and this is the generic protocol. I'll put the slides up if you want. You can look at that from the slides. That is it. So if you are interested, go to my homepage. There will be I conduct a lot of reading groups on trendy topics in cryptography, and we put all the references so you can start from the beginning and you can start reading. And then of course I request you to come back to CSA and join the crypto world here and contribute. And that's it. Thank you. It was a long talk.
Any questions? Anybody has any questions?
No, I think I'll take the questions during lunch because we are already late.
So, thank you, ma'am, for an excellent section, and as a token of appreciation, we wanted to give it. So, it was very interesting as you brought it. There's so much beyond what you really thought.
Yes.
Something more than just encoding, decoding. Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you.
So, you can go to the CSA garden in the ground floor and try to come back in maybe about 5.
It's not possible. I'm extremely sorry. I have eaten up your coffee time.
Okay, try to come by 11:45.
Yeah, that should be fine.
So it's in the garden.